Welcome to the most requested video on this channel. I did a summary for the first book some time ago. Okay, a lot time ago, but the wait is over. It's finally here. These summary videos take a lot of time. So if you're enjoying them, please leave a like to let me know, and also leave a comment if you'd like to see the summary of the next book and or Six of Crows books. Let me know. I'll do a bit of an intro here, but I'll link the chapters in the description, so you can just skip this intro if you'd like. This book is a bit of a slog. The first half is fine. You meet a new super important character, but the second half can get boring. There's barely any Darkling in this book, so sad for the Darkling fans, but I'm sure the show will figure out some way of having lots of man barns. Can you just watch this video after seeing the first season on Netflix? Perhaps. If you do that, let me know how it works out for you. I recommend you watch the summary of the first book first. I'll link it in the description. There are some notable differences between the show and the books. Particularly, there are no Crows and Shadow and Bone books. But you know, we now have the summaries for the first two books. Hopefully, I'll do the third one too if this one gets enough attention. Then you'll be able to completely skip Shadow and Bone and just read Six of Crows. It seems like a lot of people want to do that. Obviously, it's not going to be the same as reading the book, but I'll try to cover everything important. Also, maybe you have read the book, but you just don't remember. I forget everything I read in 0.3 seconds. Anyway, without further ado, here's a complete chapter-by-chapter summary of Siege and Storm by Leigh Bardugo. Before. The story starts with Alina and Mal on a cursed trade ship. They are living in tough conditions, but they don't mind. Mal picks up the life as a sailor pretty well, while Alina has nightmares at night. Sometimes she dreams of broken skiffs with black sails and decks slick with blood of people crying out in the darkness. Because in the previous book, she cut that skiff in half and left everyone to die. In the show, that doesn't happen. But worse are the dreams of a pale prince who presses his lips to her neck, who places his hands on the collar that circles her throat and calls forth the power in a blaze of bright sunlight. Mal holds her tighter and murmurs it's only a nightmare, but also Alina longs for the dreams because it's the only place she can use her powers. They're trying to keep a low profile so she's not using her powers. The ship docks at Novye Zem. They hold hands, and on board the ship, as Alina thinks, please let us be safe here. Let us be home. Chapter 1. 2 weeks pass. They're planning on going further west, but where they are is the center for the Jurda trade. Jurda is a stimulant drug. It will be important, especially in Six of Crows. She's still wearing Morozovan's collar, of course, trying to hide it. Rumors say the Darkling had survived and he's gathering his forces to take the throne. Also, that a cult has risen up around the saint. Who might that be? Maybe a certain sun saint? All women are after Mal again. He has longer hair now. They're being extremely cringy. Girls catcall Mal, and Alina is insecure, and Mal puts the girls in their place. And Alina feels better. She's like, thanks for defending my honor. They meet Mal's friend Jess. They tell him Alina has goiter because she's wearing a scarf to hide the collar. She's growing sickly since she isn't using her power. Once again, capable Mal and useless Alina. They get to their room and their landlord is being a jerk, and Alina feels something is off. And the door flies open. Boom! Ivan. They capture them, and at the back of the room, the Darkling. He has scars on his face, so the Volcra left their mark. He looks weary too. She's like, what do you want? And he says, I wanted to thank you for the gift you've given me. She is sort of eyeing Mal to give him a signal. Then she says, now! And Mal escapes from Ivan and she uses her power, but the Darkling also uses his power, and it's kind of different. Something steps out of the darkness, a creature wrought from shadow, its face blank and devoid of features. Long hands with claws, a broad back with wings, almost like a Volcra, but more human-like. and it does not fear the light. She's confused because Grisha can't create matter. She uses the cut and slices through the creature, but the Darkling creates more monsters. He's like, this is the gift you gave me. The creatures attack them. One grabs Mel, one grabs Alina, and she's in pain and she loses consciousness. Chapter 2. She is in and out. At one point she opens her eyes and Genya is there. She gives her water, but they put her back under. They're on a ship. She hears a voice saying, wake up. She doesn't recognize the voice. She opens her eyes and sees a boy with ruddy hair and a broken nose. He reminds her of the Two Clever Fox from children's stories. There's another boy behind him, giant shoe. Then the door opens and she sees a girl with short dark hair and with a similar golden gaze as the giant. They put her back down. She wakes up in a ship's cabin. Genya is there wearing a red kefta embroidered in blue. Apparently, Alina's been out for over a week. Ivan tells her the Darkling wants to see her. They bring her to the Darkling and the Corporal Kai guards are holding Mal. Turns out that the creatures are the Nichevoya, nothings. And their bites cannot be healed. Ivan is treating her like shit. Then suddenly she sees the giant and the girl. The giant guy says she is Sturmhond's prisoner and should be treated accordingly. Ivan says she is the Darkling's prisoner, but they're like, yeah, no, maybe on land. Alina recognizes the name Sturmhond. He is a Rafkan pirate and smuggler. He made a fortune capturing enemy ships, but he's not flying a Rafkan flag. Ivan is being a jerk, trying to intimidate them and using his Heartrender powers on them. Then a click behind Ivan, the Two Clever Fox with a pistol. He's like, I'm a gracious host, but every house has rules. This is Sturmhond. Ivan scurries back to his master. She learns that the giant guy and the girl are twins, Talia and Tamar. She's like, and you're Sturmhond? And he says, on my good days. She asks what's a pirate doing on a whaler, and he corrects her saying privateer. She tries to plead her case to him, but he says he doesn't want to hear her story unless there's a talking dog in it. She's like, you'd sell your country to the Darkling for a little gold? And he's like, no, for a lot of gold. Genya is back in Alina's room bringing her food. They have a bit of a moment and she's like, I'm not sorry for what I did. The Darkling did what he did for all of us. Alina's like, he created the fold, and Genya doesn't believe her. Apparently, a few people made it out of the skiff Alina destroyed, but 30-40 people died. Genya is like, you did what you had to do, implying that the Darkling also did what he had to do. She asks Genya about the letters he sent to Mal, and Genya admits she never sent them. She'd been lying to her. She realizes Sturmhond was bought. Genya had chosen the Darkling, and Mal and her were alone. Even if they escaped, there was nowhere to run. Chapter 3. About a week passes. The Darkling is looking for another amplifier. Apparently, there's another amplifier for Alina. Morozov's amplifiers are meant to be used together. He brings Mal and asks him to track the Sea Whip, Rosalia, the Ice Dragon. Once again, they're like, it's a myth, and he says, a myth like the stag. Then they're like, yeah, I guess he has a point. He says he would cut Alina and heal her until Mal finds the Sea Whip, but Sturmhond says, I won't have a girl tortured on my ship. The Darkling cuts Alina's cheek and Mal is like, I can find it, stop! He gives Mal a week. Alina and the Darkling has a chat and she asks how he survived. Apparently, the Volcra did not care for his flesh. They don't feed on each other. Alina says, like calls to like. Burn. He takes out the Lives of Saints book. He says, I know the truth in your heart, the loneliness, the growing knowledge of your own difference, and it will never fade. There are no others like us, Alina, and there never will be. It kind of feels true though. On the 6th day, Genya comes and says Mal found something. They notice another ship in the distance. Sturmhond is like, probably just fishermen, but we'll keep an eye. And after a while, they see something moving in the mist. Its back breaches the waves, and boom, Rosalia. Chapter 4. The ice dragon was real and Mal had found it. Boats attack with harpoons. The sea whip puts up a fight, but it's not going well for it. There is mist everywhere, and when the mists clear, there's another ship at the port side. So on the left, it's a schooner with gleaming masts and flying the flag of a red dog on a teal field. And below it, Ravkan double eagle in pale blue and gold. Then there are grappling hooks. Men swarm over the whaler's deck. Confusement! Sturmhond is turning against the Darkling. Tolya grabs Alina. Tamar cuts Mel's bonds. Ivan attacks Tolya, and then Inferni attacks Tamar. But guess what? Tamar was a heartrender too, so she kills the Inferni. As Ivan is focusing on Tolya, suddenly Tolya's hand shoots out too. Boom! He's also a heartrender. And he's a better heartrender than Ivan, who is one of the most powerful heartrenders in the Second Army. Well, was. Rip in peace, Ivan. The Darkling gets free. He is about to annihilate everyone, but Sturmhond shoots him. And then he's like, run! Alina calls to Genya to go with them, but she says she can't. They get to Sturmhond's ship. Apparently, they secured the sea whip, but the Darkling is up again. They free Alina's wrists. She raises her hands and light blazes, pushing the darkness away. They shoot at the whaler and disable the ship. The Darkling's Nichevoya keep coming though. Alina uses the cut but can't stop all of them. The schooner isn't fast enough. Sturmhond gives orders to the squallers to call lightning, which is actually not allowed because lightning isn't predictable. But they do, and it kind of helps against the Nichevoya a bit. Then Sturmhond was like, squallers at full! And the ship almost seems to fly over the waves. And as they get further, the Darkling's monsters can't reach them anymore. Everyone starts cheering, but Alina and Mal are like, what had we gotten ourselves into? Chapter 5. After they're far away enough, they slow down. Sturmhond gives Alina a knife for the sea whip. It's in a bad shape and it won't survive. She thinks, is this mercy? Mal takes the knife from Alina and grabs a harpoon, holds it in Alina's hand, and they drive it home. The sea whip shudders and dies. Tamar and Tolya get 7 golden scales and give to Alina. Alina and Sturmhond chats a bit. Alina is like, why did you help us? And he says, someone else paid more. And Alina is like, you betrayed the Darkling for money. He's going to hunt you for the rest of your days. And Sturmhond says, I like to have powerful enemies. Makes me feel important. Apparently Sturmhond also stole the Lives of Saints book from the Darkling, but turns out it was Alina's book all along. Her name was in it. She left it in her room when she left the palace. They turn to the page of Sankt Ilya, and they see the sea whip on the page next to Sankt Ilya too. Sturmhond says, I'd like to offer you a deal. If you don't like what my client has to say, I'll take you to wherever you want. Alina and Sturmhond have a chat about what to do with the amplifier, but Alina isn't sure because normally Grisha can only wear a single amplifier. She asks Sturmhond if he'll really let them go, and he says yes, but you're right that the Darkling is a powerful enemy. You might want to think about making some powerful friends. By the way, the name of this ship is Volkvolny, Wolf of the Waves, just as a trivia. They have dinner with the crew. Alina takes a look at the captain. His face looks kind of odd. His chin is overly pointy. His eyes muddy green. His hair is a peculiar shade of red. His nose looks like it had been broken and set several times. After the dinner, Alina pulls Mal to the side and shows him the page in the book with Sankt Ilya. She's like, look, and boom, the stag is there and Rosalia is there. And there's a third one. Chapter 6. So in the distance in the picture, a bird. Firebird is part of tons of Ravkan myths apparently. Alina is like, maybe I should use the sea whip too. Mal goes, no! He's super angry. Alina is power hungry. She does want it, but she says we need them to stop running. Then Mal says, alright. Sturmhond brings a fabricator. She makes a cuff better. Alina wears it and does a huge light show, but Alina feels like her other arm is incomplete. Mal is doubtful of her power, and she remembers the Darkling telling her he could never understand her, he would only fear her. Chapter 7. Tamar teaches them how to fight. Sturmhond is like, Tamar, please don't damage the cargo. Alina asks questions about Sturmhond, but Tamar avoids. The crew respects him. Sturmhond is like, my mother was an oyster and I'm the pearl. Sturmhond gives Privyet an envelope. That's right, there's a guy named Privyet here. It means hello in Russian. So it's a bit odd, but that's what we're going with, I guess. They leave Volkbolny and switch to another weird boat called the Hummingbird. The sails unfurl and he calls to the squallers. He gives Mal and Alina some goggles. Alina looks around and sees everyone is wearing goggles. They start speeding up more and he shouts, all right, squallers, take us up. Alina's like, take us up? And the ship starts flying. Alina is like, this is impossible. And Stormhorn says, when people say impossible, they usually mean improbable. Apparently he designed this ship and built it. Engineer. Then they're flying over land and Stormhound is taking them through the fold. Chapter 8. Alina uses her light to protect them, but Stormhound is like, pull back the light. She makes the light smaller. The Volkra attack. The ship has these automatic weapons, and the weapons destroy the Volkra. 200 rounds per minute. They pass through the ruined skiff that Alina cut. They find a nest and drop some bombs. Everyone is cheering, but Alina is kind of sad. She is like, enough, and boom, suddenly a voice. You've become quite the killer, Alina. The Darkling stands in front of Alina. No one else is watching. He takes out a knife and slashes towards her face. She throws her arms up to defend herself, but loses control of the light. And now everyone is in darkness. Mal is like, Alina! And she gets the light back up. One of the squallers is down. The ship is bobbling. But suddenly they're out of the fold. Everyone holds tight for impact. They hit the land and shudder to a halt. They get out of the wreck and the squaller is blaming Alina for losing the light. And Alina is like, ask your captain. I didn't want any of this. Sturmhorn says, yeah, it's on me. Then he takes off his goggles and hat and... what the heck? Who is this? He looks very different. Mal and Alina are shocked. He has the super nice dark gold hair and green eyes. Super handsome. She's like, you have a tailor. Talia is like, I'm not a tailor. Stormhound says, it was important for the Darkling to not recognize me, although he didn't see me since I was 14. Suddenly, 30 soldiers come through the trees. First Army, Kingsmen. Alina is ready to fight, but Stormhound is like, let me handle this. She's like, since you handled everything else so well, Stormhound, he says, don't call me that for a while. She asks, why? And he says, because it's not my name. Sturmhond takes off his coat, and under it, he's wearing Rovkan military uniform. Then their colonel comes, and he's like, explain yourself. Sturmhond goes all Maximus. I am Nikolai Lantsov, soldier of the King's Army, Grand Duke of Udova, and second son to His Most Royal Majesty, King Alexander III, ruler of the Double Eagle Throne. Shock! Colonel takes a close look and he's like, forgive me, Moy Tsarevich. Nikolai / Stormhound is like, it's been too long since I was home, brothers. I have brought the Sun Summoner back to Ravka. So Stormhound was actually the second prince that we have heard in the first book. He is Nikolai Lantsov. Alina loses it and punches him in the face. Chapter 9. Mal is like, what were you thinking? I wanted to punch him. And then he asks what happened in the fold, and Alina hides. She saw the Darkling. Alina asks if the Volkra sounded more human to Mal. And Mal is like, no. And Mal is not buying her lies. He knows something is off. Then Stormhound arrives. They're like, who are you? And he says, I am Nikolai Lantsov, but Don't make me repeat my titles. Turns out only a small number in his crew knew who he was. Tolya, Tamar, a few Etherealkai, and Privyet. Really? This book tries really hard to make Privyet happen, but Privyet is not gonna happen. Then they ask what he wants from them, and turns out his brother, Vasily, the heir, just rides horses and drinks, and his father is a garbage king. So he wants to convince his brother to step down so he can be the king. He says, I can give you the chance to change Ravka. And she says, how am I supposed to do that? Then he says, by helping me unite the first and second armies. By becoming my queen. Mel attacks Nikolai. He instantly slips from him and takes out a knife. Anyway, he's like, I'm not suggesting a love match. Then to Mel, what did you think was going to happen? You could just carry off one of the most powerful Grisha in the world, like some peasant girl. He's like, it would be a marriage in name only, except for the matter of producing heirs. Mal surges forward and he takes out the knife again. Then Alina is like, stop talking about me like I'm not here. She says, I won't marry you, but I will return to Os-Alta with you. I'll consider helping you make a bid for the throne, but I want the second army. They shake hands and Mal is like, where will I go? She's like, you'd go with me? Mal is of course being toxic and selfish and trying to drag Alina down. He gaslights Alina and goes, did it ever occur to you I'd say no? She's like, oh no, it hadn't. He says, fine, I'll help. But when this is over, will you still want me? She's like, of course. Then he leaves brooding. Chapter 10. They stop by at Kribersk and people are selling bones of Alina? Nikolai is like, you need your own colors. How about gold? Nikolai tells Alina how he got his name Sturmhond. Apparently, he boarded an enemy ship and the Fjerdan trader laughed in his face and refused to lay down his sword. He said, Fjerdan men make bread from the bones of skinny Ravkan boys. So Nikolai told him, foolish old captains weren't fit meat for Ravkan men, so he cut off his fingers and fed them to his dog while he watched. After it was over, he went to his cabin, vomited, and cried himself to sleep. That was the day Sturmhond was born. Mel, of course, keeps brooding. Finally, he's like, maybe I can be the captain of your guard and wear a fancy hat. So things are a bit better between them. They're traveling each town and people are cheering Sancta Alina. Nikolai is working the crowd with his charm. Tamar and Tolya also treat her like a saint, but Alina says, no more saint talk. Chapter 11. So Genya had poisoned the king, but the king didn't die. He's in bad shape. But the traitors were executed other than the ones who escaped. And of course, one who escaped is the Apparat. In one of the towns, people are cheering and Nikolai goes, please don't punch me, and kisses Alina on the mouth. So now the crowd is cheering Sol Koroleva, Sun Queen. Alina kicks him in the shin. She's like, next time I'll cut you in half. Then he says, I'm the younger son, most likely a bastard. I have to do whatever I can to strengthen my chances for the throne. Alina is like, wait, he's a bastard? Then they're at a party and Alina leaves and finds Mal outside, gives him a sun pin for captain of the guard. Then they kiss. Then Tamar comes and she's like, there's a group of people at the gate demanding entry. They claim to be Grisha. Turns out it was Fedior. They don't know if they can trust Fedior, but they need some Grisha on their side. So Alina accepts to talk to Fedior. By the way, I hope you're enjoying this so far. We're about the middle of the book at this point. If you're enjoying it, please leave a like to support the channel and subscribe if you'd like to see more Grisha content. Also, check out my Nikolai song, Now That You Met Nikolai. I'll link that in the description. I hope you enjoy it. But anyway, let's continue. Chapter 12. Fedior and Alina chat all night. Apparently, the soldiers turned on the Grisha after the Novokribersk attack, so they escaped. They arrive at Os-Alta. Nikolai's brother Vasily is there. He kind of cleaned up. Maybe Nikolai underestimated Vasily's interest in the crown. They come to meet the king and queen. They both look like shit. No Genya, so the queen especially looks like garbage. Queen gives Nikolai a hug. The king is hardly standing up. The royals leave, and when they come back, Alina assumes he told them he is Sturmhond. Then the king just appoints her as the commander of the second army. She's like, thanks. Because Mel deserted the army to protect Alina, King just dishonorably discharges him, even though it's a hanging offense. Chapter 13. Alina meets the remaining Grisha. Sergei is here, Marie and Nadia too. Marie isn't dead in the book yet, as she is in the show. David is also here. Zoya is here too. Alina tells them she has the king's blessing to command the second army, but Sergei's like, you don't have any military command experience. Zoya says the Etherealkai will follow the Sun Summoner. Marie is like, not all of us, because she is Sergei's pet. Everyone is fighting. Some are like, she helped the Darkling in Novosibirsk and she shared his bed. Alina is like, I'll cut Sergei in half, but in last second, she's like, nah, and she cuts the dome of the place open. Everyone is like, what the heck? She says, I don't care if you think I'm a saint or a fool or the Darkling's whore. If you want to remain here, you will follow me or be gone by tonight. She takes over the Darkling's room. She is walking around the room and suddenly the wound in her shoulder prickles. Then boom, the Darkling is there. Not the real Darkling, but another vision. He's like, my Alina, you cannot run from me. His finger brushes her cheek. Solid, real. She throws up her hands, light blazes over the room, then the Darkling vanishes. Mel, Tamar, and Tolya rush in. They're like, what happened? She's like, nothing, just need a little of light. Mel knows something is wrong, but she still doesn't tell him. Chapter 14. Alina orders each Grisha order to select 2 representatives and they're angry. Corporal Kai are like, no, we need more, we're better, blah, blah. But Alina is like, no, everyone's gonna be equal and also you'll sit together at lunch, now shut up. Nikolai sends Mal to a hunt, which is weird. He's Alina's guard. That makes no sense, but it happens. Mal storms off angrily. Alina is like, you lose Mal, you lose me too. Blah, blah. Alina goes to see Bagra. She looks super old, but also her eyes are gone. The Darkling blinded her. Bagra checks the stag collar and then feels the Rusalia bracelet. So she knows about the amplifiers. Alina says, I need to find the Firebird to stop him. She even threatens Bagra, but Bagra is like, seek the third, use it, and you will lose yourself completely. Alina runs away. Chapter 15. They're in the war room discussing if they should assassinate the Apparat. Then Alina tells them about the Nichevoya and how they're not affected by the sun and the only thing that can destroy them is the cut. Also, the Nichevoya needs to be close to the Darkling. He can't just send them miles away. Mal heads out for the hunt. Nikolai is planning to build a pier so he can rebuild Hummingbird so that Alina can escape if they end up losing the battle against the Darkling. Chapter 16. She goes to David to ask about Ilya Morozova. He's like, they call him the Bonesmith. Apparently he didn't discover the amplifiers. He made them. Merzost! Turns out the Darkling was trying to recreate Morozova's experiments and something went wrong and the result was the fold. Of course, David thinks it was the Black Heretic's son. She finds Ilya Morozova's story at the library, so one day a plow is turned over and Ilya hears screams, finds a man weeping over his dead son. Ilya brings him back to life. It is odd because he was not a corporalnik healer, he was a fabricator. But anyway, the villagers clap him in irons and toss him into a river. Cheerful story. Tolya arrives and apparently he can read some of the books Alina doesn't understand, so he's like, maybe I'll have Tamar translate this for you. He's like, go check the chapel, and she says thanks. Mel is back from the hunt. They go to the chapel together. They see Sankt Ilya's picture, but there are no animals, unlike in the Lives of Saints book. They turn to go back and boom, another vision of the Darkling. Mel is like, what's wrong? The Darkling watches them as they go. Then out of nowhere, Vasily. He says, my brother is a second son. Only I can make you queen. She's like, I have no such ambitions. Chapter 17. They're working on improving their defenses in case the Darkling attacks. The fabricators are trying to fuse Grisha steel with human bones so they can withstand Chavoya attacks. Nikolai is trying to frustrate Vasily with paperwork, so he sees ruling a country is a lot of work. Nadia introduces her young brother Adric to Alina. He is a squaller. Alina allows him to stay to fight. Mal had been going to more noble hunt events. Alina and Zoya have a confrontation. Alina is like, why did you stay? Apparently, Zoya had an aunt in Novosibirsk, and the Darkling didn't warn her. She says, I still don't like you, but if you can save Ravka, I will fight for you. Chapter 18. Mal asks Alina to go to a party. Alina is in disguise. They pretend to be fortune tellers and have fun, but suddenly a crash, a commotion. Oh no, what's happening? They get separated. Alina is cornered and boom. The Apparat walks out of the shadows. He's like, your people are suffering. Only you can bring the dawn of a new age. She says, with you by my side, I read the book, Saints Don't Live Long Lives. He says, you were not strong enough to face the Darkling, but I can change that. She asks, where is the Firebird? Tell me or I'll cut you open. He's like, I don't know, but maybe he has Morozov's journals. Then Mal and others come, the Apparat escapes. They're back at the palace. Mal says, I miss you. She says, me too. He says, let's hang out. But she needs to meet Nikolai. He says, tell him you're busy or whatever. She says, I can't. And he's upset. He's like, I hate this place. I hate the parties and people and everything. Like a teenager. He's like, I don't belong here. Apparently, people ask about him and Alina at the trip, so he has been staying away to stop the rumors about them. She says, no, we came here for Ravka. And he's like, no, you came here for Ravka. I came here for you. But that doesn't seem to matter anymore. He says, come back to me. And he's trying to be intimate with her and maybe get a kiss or something. But she's seeing another Darkling vision, so she flinches a bit. The Darkling says, tell him you see me when he takes you in his arms. Mal is complaining again. Alina is like, Mal, the Darkling. Mal is like, I don't care about the Darkling. You flinched. I kissed enough girls to know what it means. Then he storms off. The Darkling moves close to her, moves her hair, and kisses her cheek. Chapter 19. Vasily is being a jerk at a meeting. He's like, decrease the draft age to 14 or whatever, put harsher punishments for deserters. Nikolai says, if you'd read the reports, you'd actually know something. And they're fighting, and Vasily is like, what's best for Ravka is a Lantsov on the throne. So he might as well call Nikolai a bastard. But Nikolai says, then let us say a prayer for Ravka's rightful king. Let's get to business now. Alina has been seeing the Darkling every day now. She says, why won't you leave me alone? And he says, then I'd be alone too. David built these dishes to focus Alina's power, like defense turrets, I guess. It turns it into a super strong laser or something. Mal comes all beat up. She's like, we're going down to the lake. Would you like to come? He says, I came to get some coin. I'll go play cards. Brood. He acts like a jerk again and leaves. And Nikolai has a new flying ship called the Kingfisher. They ride on it and have fun. Alina and Nikolai are chatting, and Nikolai is being super charmful. And then he's like, I want to kiss you. She says, you already kissed me. He says, I want to kiss you again, but I won't. Not until you're thinking of me instead of trying to forget him. Alina is upset and says, at least now I know you don't always say the right thing. And she leaves. Chapter 20. Alina comes back to the palace and Tamar is there, and she asks if Mal is there. Tamar takes her to where Mal is. Mal is fighting a squaller in a training room. It's like Fight Club, I guess. Apparently he fights Grisha every night. Mal beats the shit out of the guy. Then Zoya comes out of nowhere, flings her arms around Mal and kisses him on the mouth. Mal kisses her back. Then he sees Alina. Mal catches up to her. They have another fight. He's like, I wish we'd never come here. Alina says, let's leave then. He's like, you won't do it. You're meant to be a queen and I am nothing. What am I, Alina? Am I your guardian, your friend, your servant? He pulls her clothes, but then she electroshocks him or something. He's like, it's never easy with us, is it? She says, no, Mel, it's not easy. It's never going to be. I can't just run away. They walk to the little palace in silence. She finally tells him that she sees the Darkling. Mel grabs a bottle of kvass and leaves. Alina cries. Alina wakes with Mal kissing her. She's like, oh, great, it's gonna be okay. But then she opens her eyes and boom, it was the Darkling all along. He says soon and vanishes. Chapter 21. She goes out for a walk. It's before sunrise. She sees pilgrims praying to Sancta Alina as the sun rose. She's like, what the heck? She stumbles on a woman while getting back. The woman sees her collar and she's like, Sancta. They're all like zombies. Sancta, Sancta. She's like, you know what, let them take me apart, whatever. But then Tolia and Tamar save the day. Mal is sitting at the common room. Tolia jumps at him. It was your shift, where were you? Alina goes to meet Nikolai. She says, I saw the pilgrims. There's a name they use for me, daughter of Dva Stolba, twin arches. Apparently there's an arch there. Arch in the foreground, ruins behind. It looks like the picture of Sancta Ilia. Only missing Firebird. Mal is like, I go bring the Firebird to you. And just leaves. Nikolai says, let him go. That's what heroes do. Alina says, the thing about heroes and saints is that they all end up dead. Chapter 22. Alina is at Nikolai's birthday dinner. Vasily makes a speech. He's like, to your health, little brother. But there's more news. Apparently he went to Fierda and they agreed to join them in the fight against the Darkling. Nikolai's like, what did they ask in return? Vasily says, man, not much, just to reopen some northern roads. Nikolai's like, which roads? Yeah, apparently the Fjerdans made a deal with the Darkling, so he opened the roads for the Darkling's army basically. Warning bells begin to ring. Nichevoya swarm the room. Vasily's like, you and the witch did this. Draws his saber, and then a Nichevoya rips his arm off. He drops dead. The Darkling's Grisha starts streaming onto the grounds. Nikolai takes the king and the queen to the Kingfisher. He says, I'll get them out and come back. I promise to Alina. Alina says, on your word as a cutthroat and pirate? He touches Alina's cheek and says, privateer. Alina is using the cut on their way to get to the laser dishes. There's one dish left, but it works and they kill some Nichevoya, gives them some hope. Then the Nichevoya attack the dish and destroy it. They see Sergei holding Marie, so this is where Marie dies in the books. They find somewhere to hide. Zoya is with them, Sergei, Adric, Nadia, 3 Inferni, 1 healer, 1 heartrender. It's all that is left of the second army. Talia and Tamar aren't there. David is like, I say we go down fighting. Alina gives them cover as they run. Then suddenly, soldiers are pouring out of the woods, crying, Sancta Alina, led by Tamar and Tolia. Chapter 23. They run to the chapel. Tamar leads them through a secret passage. The Darkling himself arrives too. He's like, stand down, Alina, and I will spare them. She says, what are your terms? He says, come with me, and they can all go. Mal is like, he's lying. And the Darkling says, I don't need to lie. She wants to come with me. Then to Alina, do you think I could have come to you again and again if you had been less alone? You called to me, I answered. So they weren't just visions. He was actually there. Alina still says no. Then he says, bring her. They bring someone with bites all over, marks of Nichevoya. Then Alina recognizes her hair. It is Genya. He says, when will it be enough? When will you let me stop? Together we can put an end to all war. Alina says, all right, but you let everyone else go. Mal is like, no, this can't be how it ends. Alina says, I have loved you all my life. There is no end to our story. She goes to the Darkling, cups the back of his neck, says, my power is yours. She kisses him. and yours is mine. He's like, what are you doing? She remembers the connection between them when he seized control of her. She forces her way across that bond and reaches the Darkling's power. She starts creating Nichevoya. He's like, stop, you'll kill us both. She's like, yes. Mal grabs Alina and runs. The last thing she hears is everything crashing down. They travel through passages and caverns. The pilgrims have been using these tunnels apparently. That's how the Apparit was able to come and go. Turns out Tamar led him to Alina and then let him get away. When Alina was with the pilgrims, that's how they were there too, to save her. They were with the pilgrims. She asks how everyone is to Mel. Apparently the pilgrims call Genya Razroshaya the ruined. She goes to Talia and Tamar, do you serve me and not the priest? They say, we serve you. She says, we'll see. Then she says, some of the pilgrims call Genya Razroshaya. If they speak that word again, warn them once, then cut out their tongues. They meet the Apparat and he is like, we will rise to make a new Ravka. Then there's a mirror scene, so we can have Alina describe how she looks. This is Leigh Bardugo's second book, so cut her some slack for the mirror scene, I guess. But Alina's hair is white now, so that's the purpose of the mirror. But also, she can't summon anymore. The light won't come, Mal. My power is gone. After. She dreams of flying ships and the Firebird. The Darkling survives and rules Ravka with his monstrous horde. At night she hears Mal pacing outside her room, keeping watch with the twins. She lays quiet in her bed, counting her breaths, stretching towards the surface, seeking the light. Remembers Maria, Fedor, and Genya. She touches the collar and the fetter. So many men tried to make her queen, but she was meant for more. The Darkling had told her he was destined to rule. He had claimed his throne and part of her too. He was welcome to it. For the living and the dead, she would make herself a reckoning. She would rise. All right, that was the end of the book. I hope this was helpful. If you made it this far, make sure to leave a comment to let me know. Also, leave a comment if I forgot anything important. And other than that, I would like to leave you with a Nikolai song I wrote. Go ahead and check it out if you're interested now that you've met Nikolai. And another Grishaverse video, which will be replaced by a summary of the third book once it's ready. But yeah, that's it for this one, and I'll see you next time.